Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Friday, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit here at BB's Market, of course, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Make sure you go to the Wow Club, sign up, start earning Wow rewards today to great places like BB's and Southern Stone on Patterson and Rogers, where on each Monday night at 7:05 you can find Don Fisher and Mike Whitson for Inside Indiana Men's Basketball. And before that, usually you can also find Terry Morin for the women's basketball side, which great win for them last night again as the number 2 Indiana team knocks off number 5 Iowa. Big game on the women's side, Alec. I know we don't talk a lot about women's basketball, but big game. That's a big game for Indiana because I failed to mention a new record crowd for 13,300 in attendance for a women's game in Bloomington, which is phenomenal. But Indiana looked really good last night as a team. I don't know if you watched the game or not.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the MO of Indiana this season is, right? If someone has an off night, not that anyone did last night because Mackenzie Holmes and obviously Grace Berger were terrific from start to finish yesterday. But, if someone has an off night, if someone goes down with an injury like Grace Berger did earlier this season, people just tend to step up and in big games. They've had numerous big time games. You talked about the record crowd last night. That's the 3rd or 4th record that they've set just this season. So, it just shows the consistency that they have to obviously be in these big time games, to win these big time games, and obviously continue to draw such a big crowd, which it's kind of a long time coming, not only for this program, but what Terry Morin's been able to build from year one up until now, and the consistency and the now not only Big Ten power, but the national power that I think Indiana is at this point. Obviously, there's going to be some key pieces that leave after this season, so it'll be interesting and exciting still to see what Terry Morin can do moving forward into the next few years. But there's no question Indiana is now a national program when it comes to the women's side, and they just continue to show it and showed it again last night on another big stage.
They've been doing this all season, but the two things that I noticed most in that game last night was number one, how aggressive they were at driving to the basket. I mean, they made 22 free throws and Iowa shot 23. So, and Grace Berger, as soon as she got the ball in her hands, it seemed like she was driving to the basket every time. The other thing was, this is a really good passing team. I mean, they don't take a lot of bad contested shots. They were finding the open player underneath the hoop consistently. Grace Berger driving, set up some good shots. Like, I'm just very impressed with. I think in games like that, it's easy to get tentative or to freeze up a little bit and maybe settle for jump shots. But in probably, I don't know, that might be one of the biggest games at Assembly Hall for the women's side in maybe history. I don't know, but I just felt like they didn't change their game plan. They played the way they know how and the way they've been playing all season. And to me, in those type of situations, like Iowa's been there before. They've been up and coming for a few years now, but this was their first time to really, exert their dominance. And it was impressive to me to see that they didn't freeze up in that moment.
Yeah, and Terry Morin's talked about it all season long, and even dating back to last year, right, with a lot of the same, at least key pieces that have been there now for so long and played such a large part in this kind of buildup up until now. And we're kind of seeing it on the men's side too, but the emotional maturity that this team has, the toughness that this women's team has, and again, it just goes back to everyone being able to step up when their name's called. And Terry Morin does that entire staff does a phenomenal job getting these guys ready, these girls ready to compete consistently from start to finish. And they've always been able to do that. And now just kind of tipping the scale just that little bit to now start knocking off these teams, right? They've been there consistently now for almost 3 straight years, and just haven't really been able to crack the seal a little bit. We saw with the Elite Eight, obviously the back-to-back Sweet 16s, and you kind of feel like this is the year, right? Everything that they've kind of built up until now, this is the year, and they continue to show it, which with every big game that they've played in this year. and they continue to take on every challenge and kind of break down any sort of barrier that was there. So I'm super excited to continue to watch this team. Obviously, I think a lot of people have even higher expectations than what they had when the season started for what this team could do in the NCAA tournament. And so you just hope that they continue to stay healthy and continue to play that they have been playing, because obviously there's not a lot of teams, if any, right, that are consistently better than Indiana when they take the floor.
Absolutely. And on the men's side, they continue play tomorrow as they travel, this time to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to take on the Wolverines of Michigan, a team that they've got a lot of work to do to make the tournament, which makes them dangerous, Alec, because they desperately need this game. I've been talking about they're way down in the net rankings because they lost some games early, but they have been playing really well. I don't have the Big Ten men's standings pulled up, but I think they're tied in that second group of ties, I believe. So they're hanging around, and this is a game that I think Indiana needs to win, because I think it hurts them more than anything. They just need to keep winning, and they need more quad one wins to up their seed for the NCAA tournament. I think they have a ceiling of a 3 seed in the tournament, but to get there, they have to win a game like at Michigan. They have to win at Michigan. They can't. To get a 3 seed, I think the only game they can probably afford to lose might be Purdue, at Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, for Indiana, right, there's still a lot of quality opponents coming up here at the back end of the schedule. Obviously, you still have the Big Ten tournament, and I think a lot of people would expect Indiana to compete for that conference championship. So that you add in a couple other big time matchups, assuming that they get that far. But yeah, Michigan, a team that's won 4 out of 5, a team that's starting to play a lot better when it comes to kind of their role players around a guy like Hunter Dickinson. Obviously, Jett Howard's been there all season. I think probably the most consistent player from start to finish, outside of the couple injuries that he's had throughout the year. But Kobe Buffkin, a guy who's really starting to come on strong for Michigan, a younger player who's taken on a much larger role, not only this year coming into the season, but since Jalen Llewellyn went down with the ACL injury, about a month ago. A guy who's really started to step up into a big-time playmaker for that team, really versatile player on the wing who can do a lot, good size, really good two-way player. And so Michigan's starting to kind of click on all cylinders, which I think a lot of people kind of expected that Michigan team to be kind of right where they are at this point. They probably didn't expect a lot of the different kind of ways that they got there. But Michigan's still a good team with a lot of talent on that roster. And Indiana obviously needs to go in and be ready to compete on the road. Still a place that they've struggled to do so, still even this season, to find ways to win on the road. Obviously, they found a way against Minnesota with a lot of things kind of going the wrong way there. But, overall, they still need to prove that they can consistently win on the road, where a lot of these games in this current winning streak, right, has obviously come in Assembly Hall, which we know Indiana loves way more than anything else.
And, one of the things that's going to be interesting to me, Alec, is I think that, you hit it with Michigan's kind of coming into their stride a little bit. And I can't remember the final score off the top of my head, but I think they surpassed 90 points in that win against Nebraska the other day. Like, I think what's going to be interesting to me is Indiana has had now 2 back-to-back wins. They beat number 1 Purdue. They beat a top 25 Rutgers team, both at home, in kind of, I don't want to say different fashions, because those games were both pretty scrappy. But this team over the last 7 games has proven that it can win games in a lot of different ways. I think that their defense is going to be tested in this one, much like it was maybe in that Maryland game. I remember, Indiana had chances to win that game, no question, but Maryland missed a lot of open shots. Like, I don't think their defense traveled very well in that game in College Park. Do you think that that's going to be the key in this game is on the defensive side? Because I think Michigan can, even though they've had their struggles this season in that Nebraska game and in the last couple games, I think that they've proven that they can put up a lot of points in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, goes back to kind of their wing and perimeter defense, something that's been, I still think, inconsistent at best throughout even this winning streak, right? Obviously, they really struggled against Maryland, which is at this point kind of that one outlier over the last month here. But even dating back to, the start of the season, they've still really struggled to contain explosive perimeter players. Dating back to last year as well, that's one thing that defense has really struggled with. It's been masked a lot by what they've had, obviously, in Trace Jackson Davis and the elite shot blocking ability that he has, which does mask a lot of deficiencies that you can have on the defensive end of the floor. But a guy like Kobe Buffkin, a guy like Jet Howard, guys who are explosive athletes who can not only get to the hole, but also, in Jet Howard's case, shoot lights out from three pretty consistently. Those are two areas where Indiana has struggled. And so, I think they're going to be able to contain Hunter Dickinson, especially with the different types of forwards that they can kind of throw at him. He has struggled to at least get out to fast starts this season as well. He tends to always, just like Zach Edey does, get his, obviously not comparing him to how he gets those points and rebounds, but always finds a way to get about 16 to 18 points a game and close to about 10 rebounds. But it's going to come down to what Indiana can do guarding those perimeter players. Much like Purdue as well, much younger backcourt, not super experienced in terms of big-time atmosphere type games. But obviously this is a home one for Michigan, so that's going to vastly improve that backcourt for the Wolverines. So Indiana needs to continue to do what they've said they need to do, which is stay out of foul trouble on the perimeter and guard without fouling. We'll see how far that takes them. But yeah, that's definitely a matchup that Indiana really needs to take advantage of with their experience and put the clamps on at least one or two of those guys.
And Indiana has been getting great play from what I call their ancillary players, Alec, whether it's Trey Galloway, Tamar Bates in here of late. It was Miller Kopp in the last game, but that is the great sign, is that it has been someone different, that they're getting production from different people, sometimes at the same time, because you can't win. We've talked about with these one and two person teams. Indiana can't win with just Trace Jackson Davis. They can't win with just Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino. They have to have production like they did against Purdue with Miller Kopp being so active. And I think that the scouting report on Michigan is they like to get back and set up for defense. They're not going to pressure you. They want to get back and be in position, and that's fine for Indiana. That should work right into their hands if they remain active, because if they're active and moving, that's going to make life difficult for any team, much less Michigan. Indiana has come into their own. Miller Kopp really seems to, that last game, gain a lot of confidence moving without the ball. And people again started to rail on me because I was railing on him a little bit. It's because he wasn't doing what he's been doing in the last two games. But all of a sudden he is, and it's magical, and it makes this offense, it makes Trace Jackson Davis a better player. It opens up the spacing, and man, when he's got that new move, like where he palms the ball and starts doing the Karl Malone thing, but which is fine. He didn't used to do that, but you can tell when he does that, he's got some space. But the one thing is, I'm like, stop doing the tell, because he doesn't. He waits too long, and that gives the defense. They see that, and they're like, all right. They start to get ready to hedge on that. I'm like, just do it. But that spacing, the spacing with the movement has been much greater, much better, much more open, and it has been prolific for this offense.
Yeah, and obviously Miller Kopp's an interesting point here, because in a certain way, I disagree a little bit with what you said there, where I think he always has been moving. That's the thing, where he's always been active without the ball. I think this team has struggled to consistently find him. I think the defenses have, especially if they've played in a little bit more zone, have really sided on his end of the floor and taken away some of that action. And this team has really struggled at times to play against zone defenses, so that's taken away him in his offensive ability completely. But You know, I've always been saying, dating back to, you know, I had a couple stories about it a month and a half ago, that in order for Indiana to be the team that they can be, Miller Kopp needs more opportunities. He needs more shots, because he does, like you said, opens up the floor tremendously for what Trayce Jackson-Davis can do. And with his passing ability now, that's a lethal combination, those two, that I don't think a lot of people expected even a couple weeks ago. But if you're able to space the floor like that with the driving abilities that you do have with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trey Galloway, and the elite passing ability now in Trayce Jackson-Davis, that's a really difficult offense to stop. And Miller Kopp has proven he's going to hit the shots when he gets them. He just has not been getting them. And I think, you know, it's not only a testament to his hard work to continue to be, you know, his favorite word is opportunistic, and continue to be opportunistic when he's out on the floor. But I do think, you know, he talked about it a little bit too, against Rutgers, right? That was sort of the game plan coming in. You know, his two highest scoring games this season have been against Rutgers. And if he gets those opportunities, he's going to convert. So it's just more about Indiana continuing to try to find him. And as much as I think Trayce Jackson-Davis obviously needs a touch every possession, I think Miller Kopp needs a touch just about the same amount of times as Trayce Jackson-Davis does, because of his elite three-point shooting ability and ability to open up this floor for almost every single other player for Indiana.